last night Donald Trump did a News Nation town hall where he didn't even bother to zoom in. He's just like probably on the toilet calling into this town hall. And it's co-moderated, or the panelists are Chris Cuomo with News Nation, Bill O'Reilly.
I was going to ask.
Yeah.
That's Bill O'Reilly, okay.
Right, looking, very exfoliated with his loofah, which we all know that he's a huge fan of loofahs. And Stephen A. Smith, who, what is there to say? He makes me laugh, but that's about it.
I apologize to the world for saying he should just do sports or politics after a couple of years ago he said Jokic isn't good in the post, so... I apologize for cursing that into existence.
You made this happen. Russ, you worked with Chris Cuomo.
Yes, I did. Shout out to my boy.
Do you think he was thrilled with the fact that this was like Trump couldn't even be bothered to show his face, that he's just calling in via phone?
It's a long ride from CNN glory, hosting town halls with presidents where they're actually in the studio, to the phoner from the bathroom.
You're not at CNN anymore?
But he looks I think his face reflects
put it up right here,
his disappointment.
You can just see, yep, this is where he's at now. This is his fall from grace.
Don't worry, he's got maybe a little side gig this year helping his bro out.
Yeah,
with
well,
his mayoral campaign.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice to work for a place that doesn't care about conflicts like that.
Yeah, must be nice. Or I guess that's where he upgraded. But putting that aside for a second, what they're talking about here is the current House Republican budget negotiations and just the budget negotiations in general. Basically, what's been happening is that because Trump wants this one big, beautiful bill and wants to extend the tax cuts from 2017 that disproportionately favored the rich, the Republicans have to come up with $880 billion in cuts that were directed to the Energy and Commerce Committee. The Energy and Commerce Committee oversees Medicaid, and that is the biggest area, tranche, if you will, where the Trump administration can cut from to meet their quotas for what they need to justify continuing to cut taxes on the rich. And they are going after specifically Medicaid. Medicaid expansion. Under the Affordable Care Act, 20 million more people were added to the Medicaid rolls than were on Medicaid previously. Overall, Medicaid now, when you pair it with CHIP, which is the version for low-income children, Medicaid covers nearly 80 million people in this country, and it's disproportionately folks of lower income. That's how you qualify, is I think it's like 138% above the poverty line you can qualify for Medicaid. But the poverty line is just already, the determination for if you're impoverished is way too low based on how the federal government makes that calculation. So this is like one of the only programs that's holding together our social safety net with duct tape, essentially. And this is what the Republicans are going to go after. And how they're going to do it is really important to understand, because under the Affordable Care Act, Medicaid expansion, the federal government incentivized states to expand Medicaid by using a 90% federal matching rate, meaning the federal government picked up 90% of the tab. And red states were very reluctant to take this free money, basically, to give health care to their citizenry. But eventually we got to a point where 40 states have expanded Medicaid. And what they're trying to do is cut the federal matching rate to make it so that they go to, under the expansion, the traditional Medicaid matching rate, not the expansion, but the traditional Medicaid matching rate. And that ranges in between 50% it can go up to, I think, 83%. And that's based on the federal poverty rate in those states. So that's called the Federal Medical Assistance Percentage, aka FMAP. You might see that written about in articles. And so under that, it can be the lowest it gets statutorily is 50%. And the highest it gets is 83%. And the poorer the state that you are, I think like Alabama is the top in terms of that rate. Right now it's around like 73% for the matching rate. But if you cut the Medicaid expansion down to those levels, what happens is that there are at least 12 states that have trigger laws that basically would kill the Medicaid expansion if the federal matching rate dips below 90%. So this is a backdoor way for them to cut Medicaid, relying on these state laws, these trigger laws that say we can eliminate Medicaid if the federal we can eliminate Medicaid expansion if the federal matching rate dips below 90%. So they're claiming that they're not going to try to cut Medicaid as they're trying to cut Medicaid. And there's no better example of this kind of just craven lying than Donald Trump last night and what he said via phone call to News Nation.
Deal, but we're going to make it on our terms.
Okay. Mr.
And it's
President,
got to be fair.
Mr. President, in the upcoming budget negotiations, another point of uncertainty is what happens to entitlements. Whether or not waste, fraud, and abuse, I think everybody's in favor of seeing that identified and exposed, but that Social Security benefits or the adjustments or the application of it may be compromised, or Medicaid may be compromised in terms of who gets how much in benefits. Do you have a commitment for the American people in terms of how much you will protect those programs?
We're not doing anything with entitlements. And if you look at Social Security, and by the way, I think I'm better to say this than anybody because I did nothing with entitlements that would hurt people for 4 years. I could have done that. If I was going to do that, I would have done it 5 years ago, 6 years ago, or 7 years ago. I'm not doing anything. The only thing is, you say don't talk about waste, fraud, and abuse. There is a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. There are a lot of illegal aliens that are getting Medicaid that shouldn't be getting it. And nobody objects to taking people off Medicaid that aren't allowed to be there. But we are doing absolutely nothing to hurt Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security. Nothing at all.
Stephen A.
Okay, so if you are undocumented, you can use Medicaid, I think, for emergency services. But we've gone through this over and over and over again, particularly about Social Security, which he has already harmed via whatever the Doge boys were doing, shutting down the offices, making it more difficult for older people to use their phone system. They reversed that, but still creating this insecurity with people's experience with Social Security. There were checks that were delayed because of the Doge groypers fiddling around in the Social Security office. And you guys had Martin O'Malley on yesterday. I wasn't able to listen to that interview, but I'd imagine he wouldn't agree with the claim that the Trump administration has been kind in terms of its protections of Social Security.
Absolutely not. And I would just say, like, this whole thing where we pay lip service to the idea that, we're all concerned with waste, fraud, and abuse. The Republicans aren't. They are using it as a warrant to attack it. The people who are concerned with waste, fraud, abuse are the bureaucrats who work at these organizations who should be better funded to root it out.
Right.
It's not the Republican recitation of waste, fraud, and abuse needs to be met as a sort of wolf in sheep's clothing style threat.
It's because they know that they can't cut Social Security via the legislative process, right? So Trump is relying on the fact that was understood in his first term, right? He understood that it would be the third rail, and he didn't want to cut Social Security. He tried to cut the Affordable Care Act until John McCain gave the thumbs down.
And what was the balance of Congress for his last 2 years in office? Like, didn't the Democrats have the House at least?
Yes, right. So, but that was in his first 2 years, which is what he was attempting to do.
He was going after, like you say, Obamacare.
Yes, and so he does have that understanding that you can't through the legislature, he's not going to have an easy time cutting Social Security. So he's doing it illegally on the back end. But Medicaid cuts, because that's for not a broad-based social program that everybody who is a citizen, by the way, is eligible for when they hit 65. That is such a popular program that they can't touch it. Republicans are going to go after programs that help the poor. And as I mentioned, they're going to do it in this sleazy way where they pretend that they're not, we're just tweaking the matching rate, understanding that in a dozen states across the country, that means that Medicaid just gets eliminated. Right. So
I didn't do it last time, so trust me this time.
Right. Here he is again, repeating this at his rally 2 days ago, celebrating his first 100 days, of being the most unpopular president in your first 100 days in the history of polling. Let's all get together and make some lemonade out of lemons.
No tax on overtime. It's called the One Big Beautiful Bill, and it will be the biggest bill ever passed in our country's history. It will include the biggest tax cuts, regulation cuts, military supremacy, and just about everything else. We will cut more than $1 trillion in wasteful and unnecessary spending. And in the next fiscal year, it'll all be done. We're going to have something that you won't even believe. We will end inflation, slash prices. We've already ended inflation, raise wages, and give you the greatest economy in the history of the world. That's already happening. With our tax bill, the average family's take-home pay will be at least $5,000 more than it was just a couple of months ago. We will always protect Medicare and Social Security for our great seniors with no cuts, and we will defend Medicaid for those great people that are in need. House Republicans are working to invest more money in Medicaid than we spend today. The only thing we're going to cut is the corruption and the crooks that take advantage of some of the...
There we go. Just, I know that we're used to the lying, but the unbelievable gall to say that you're not trying to cut Medicaid as the House Republicans are actively doing it, as it is foundational to their economic agenda going forward, is really just it's just something else. And this is also the problem, by the way, of not politically tying Donald Trump to the Republican Party and pretending he is in some way outside of these budget negotiations, right? Because the Republican Party always has wanted to cut Social Security. They have always wanted to cut Medicare. They especially want to cut Medicaid right now because they think it's the softest target, and they think that going after poor people as opposed to everybody, all of our seniors, is a more politically salient move for them. But when you say Donald Trump is a king and not a Republican or a part of a Republican apparatus, this is why he overperforms in presidential elections, and Republicans can't match him in midterms because he's not at the top of the ticket, because people don't associate him with the Republican agenda of austerity and war on the poor. And he knows that in this way that he can just lie rampantly about what the Republican agenda is, because he almost sees himself as outside of it, even as he benefits from it. So this is why it's important as a political matter to continue to make sure that it's like Mike Johnson, Donald Trump, one and the same. Because he gets away with this because of his ability to brazenly lie, and because, frankly, the Democrats give him the opportunity to do so.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.